Tonight we get the privilege of presenting the David Crowley Leadership Award. It's an award in honor of the late City Councilman and Vice Mayor David Crowley, or better known to me as Dad. It was such an honor for us to have this award named after him, and really it was very appropriate too because he was such a great advocate for people of Cincinnati. From the first day on council, he was the leading voice in the effort to repeal Article 12. And this was an article that for over a decade prevented the city from adopting any ordinance that treated gays and lesbians as a protected class. But fortunately, in 2004, my dad, along with the Human Rights Campaign and tonight's recipient, worked to get Article 12 repealed, and we did. And then something awesome happened. 2006, it was my dad who led the efforts to pass the first ever protections for the LGBT community, forever changing the landscape in the city at large. It takes real vision and leadership to make that kind of a difference. My dad had that kind of vision and leadership, and that's what this award really represents. Tonight's recipient embodies those qualities, and we couldn't be more thrilled.
I'm so proud that we are honoring my friend Chris Seelbach tonight. My husband David and I first met Chris at a PFLAG meeting when he was a young student at Xavier University, leading the charge to establish an LGBT leadership group. That was just the beginning. Chris has been a part of our lives ever since. David was a mentor to Chris, and we became allies in the fight for equality. Chris has since picked up the baton and has become a mentor himself and an influential advocate for human rights. Cincinnati City Council member Chris Seelbach made history in 2011 when he became the first openly gay person ever elected in Cincinnati. He was named by the White House a Harvey Milk Champion of Change. Since taking office, Chris has led efforts to do many things, including extending equal partner health insurance to all city employees, creating a domestic partner registry, establishing LGBT police, fire, and mayoral liaisons, and legislation that requires all city contractors to adhere to an inclusive, non-discrimination policy. These combined efforts led to a score of 100 on this year's Human Rights Campaign Municipal Equality Index, making Cincinnati one of the most LGBT-friendly cities in the country. David was so proud of Chris, and I know he would be excited by his successes. Please join me in honoring my friend Chris Seelbach with this year's David C. Crowley Leadership Award.
I can't look at you. Wow. Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't expect this. Thank you. And first of all, I want to answer Fred Sand's question about Skyline and Gold Star. Affirmatively, in some way you get this, it is Skyline, not Gold Star. Although Dixie Chili is LGBT only, so that was an option. Thank you. Thank you to the Human Rights Campaign, to the Cincinnati Steering Committee, to Steve Newsom for the nomination, to my friends and family seated right here. I love you too. To my partner of almost 10 years, Craig Schultz. To my parents who have been together since they were 15 and 16. And it's gonna get worse, but I promise it will get better. To my mom, who just retired this past week, and who has been a model of what it means to be a working mother for her entire career. Thank you. You know, this recognition means so much, not only because it is a recognition of what we as a community have done to make Cincinnati one of the most LGBT inclusive cities in the country, but it's because it's named after the person who inspired me to enter public service and to every day walk into City Hall to try to have the courage to do what's right. The former Vice Mayor, David Crowley. You know, the famous physicist, Stephen Hawking, was recently asked, digressing, what he thought the biggest threat to human existence was today. He did not say doomsday asteroids or global plagues or super volcanoes. He said human aggression. As a legislator, I have helped to make our laws reflect the values that we share, that LGBT people should be treated equally and fairly under the law. But imagine a world where Stephen Hawking is wrong, where we were all just a little bit more kind to one another, including in the LGBT community. We could skip the fight for equality to change the hearts and minds and get on with loving one another and our neighbors. We are not there yet, we know. The fight must continue. And that extends beyond this June. Because full marriage equality in every state is coming this June. It's coming thanks to my friend, Jim Obergefell. That's how you pronounce it, Obergefell. And his partner, the late John Arthur, and so many others. But we are not finished. You know, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 passed, but yet racism and sexism and bias towards people of national origins and different religions exist every single day. The Americans with Disability Act passed in 1990, yet my friend and colleague, Kevin Flynn, can still not access many buildings in our own city. The fight for equality for all, including LGBT people, does not stop. It doesn't stop with politicians getting elected. It doesn't stop with laws being passed. It doesn't stop until we're either more kind to one another or our fight for equality is successful. You know, I was recently asked by a colleague of mine, a colleague who is running for the United States Senate, PG 75. What do you attribute to the tremendous change we've seen in the last 10 years? My answer is not politicians like me. It's not judges or executive directors. It's not wealthy donors, and it's not CEOs. The answer is you. It's us. It's nurses and firefighters. and people who are wealthy and not wealthy. It's moms and dads. It's everyone who's done one single, simple thing. Come out. Come out to your friends, your neighbors, your co-workers. Come out. It is that single gesture that has changed this movement for equality for all of us. And so you are the real heroes of this movement. You know, as was mentioned tonight, our world changed this past December when Neela Alcorn took her own life, challenging us to make it mean something. And for the first time for so many in this entire world, people are talking about what it means to be transgender and trans equality. And by the way, I want to thank the Cincinnati Enquirer, Sharon Coolidge, and so many of our local media who did the right thing, wanted to learn, use the right pronoun, and advocate for legal and for trans people. You know, trans rights are gay rights. They are lesbian rights, and to quote Hillary Clinton, they are human rights. We have to do a better job as coming out as allies to our transgender brothers and sisters, whereas their rights, their equality is just as important as every single person in this room's equality and rights. I'll end as I've ended every chance I've had to speak in the last 4 years. Some of my friends and family will recognize this. By quoting my favorite movie, A League of Their Own, which is kind of like about some lesbian. But the quote is, "It's supposed to be hard. If it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. The hard is indeed what makes it great." Thank you.